Get ready to discover some of the most actionable DevOps techniques and tooling, including performance and reliability with some of the world's smartest engineers. Hey, I'm Joe Colantonio, host of the DevOps Toolchain podcast, and my goal is to help you create DevOps Toolchain awesomeness. Hey, it's Joe, and welcome to another episode of the Test Skill DevOps Toolchain podcast. Today, we'll be talking all about Shiftleft DevOps Testing. If you don't know, Vishnu is a QA advocate, currently working as a QA architect for a very large bank, and he has over a decade of experience in multiple things like designing, curating, and writing test cases across multiple technologies, including big data, UI, and backend services. He also has expertise in performance engineering, resilience testing, and security testing. And he has a lot of experience with other QA tools and frameworks across different functional domains and technical stacks. So really excited to have him back on the show. Joining him, we have Geetanjali, who is a seasoned technology lead and has a lot of experience with development and automation testing, has a wealth of experience in driving strategic change and organizational transformation, executing complex client engagements, and delivering enterprise-scale test automation programs across leading global banks and IT organizations. And really excited to have them both on the show because they both have hands-on experience as well, implementing DevOps and DevOps testing with a really complex enterprise company. So really, if you want to learn real-world experience on how to really implement DevOps and how to really up your testing in this area, you don't want to miss this episode. Check it out. Hey, if your app is slow, it could be worse than an error. It could be frustrating. And in my experience, frustrated users don't last long. But since slow performance is a sudden, it's hard for standard error monitoring tools to catch. That's why Bugsnag, one of the best production visibility solutions in the industry, has a way to automatically watch for these issues: real user monitoring. It detects and reports real user performance data in real time so you can quickly identify lags. Plus, get the context of where the lags are and how to fix them. Don't rely on frustrated user feedback. Find out for yourself. Go to bugsnag.com and click on the free trial button. No credit card required. Support the show and check them out. Hey, Vishnu and Geetanjali, welcome to the Guild.
Hey, hi, Joe.
Hi, Joe. Thanks.
Great to have you. I really love people that have a real experience implementing automation and DevOps in the real world. So really excited to dive into this topic. I guess before we get into it, though, people may have heard of Shiftleft testing, but maybe not necessarily Shiftleft DevOps testing. Is it the same? Is it different? How would you explain what is Shiftleft DevOps testing?
So if you see, Joe, Shiftleft is a wide concept. If you can see across the industry, Shiftleft is used for the different nomenclature. If you go with the auto industry or some other industry, everyone talks about Shiftleft. But whenever it comes to the IT industry, the shift left always talks about the shifting left to the testing. But whenever we are talking everything, it's correlated with the shift left with the testing. And when it go with the DevOps or Agile methodology as well, these are really a high performing teams require this as a guideline and principle. But still there are challenges to perform this high. And at that time, every time shift left come as a, what we can say as a savior for them, that's saying that shift left is a good and let's move the shift left with the testing. So yes, most of the time we say yes, shift left is related to the testing, but I would say it's not only testing, but when it is utilizing properly with the DevOps and Agile, then we can say yes, shift left is a good for Agile and DevOps. Testing is a one part of it, I would say.
Absolutely. I have this debate all the time. A lot of people say testing has nothing to do with DevOps, but I think it clearly does. I think a lot of people just focus on functional automation as testing, and they forget about all these other types of automation activities and testing activities. So maybe can you give us a few examples of other types of like DevOps more related activities that you can shift left, and then we can dive into each one of those?
Yeah. So when we talk about DevOps or in the Agile, most of the time everyone talks about the feedback loop, where we go with the continuously feedback if we are get and how you will get the feedback, continuous feedback. So most of the time it gets correlated with the continuous testing will give the feedback, and for that every time it talks about the if automation is there, then it will be a feedback loop. It is more. And when it comes to the DevOps or Agile, when it goes to the faster delivery, At that time, also it talks about only on the functional testing part of it. But we are talking about when it goes with the Shiftleft, it's not only with the functional test, but we have to go beyond that functional testing and have the Shiftleft not only for functional testing, but integration testing, regression, and some basic part of the performance for the stability purpose when it goes to the production.
So basically, what exactly in our project, the main idea with the Shiftleft approach was that to shift everything, the testing part as well as the DevOps part, to the left side of the development. So to go hand in hand, actually. So we are actually approaching for a V type model, actually, where the testing is happening along with the requirement analysis itself. So if we talk about the agile principles and we follow the agile ceremonies, so as soon as the PI plannings are happening, the testing should, the mentality of that testing should be also in place with that, along with that. So the requirement analysis, in that time only the testing, the testers should be, it's not about the just only testers, but everyone's mindset should be also in the focus of the quality. So everyone should be aware of what the testing is happening, and what the main focus should be on the quality of the product as well as with the development.
So, I find it very difficult. Well, maybe it was the company I work for, difficult getting everyone buy into testing in general. How do you get people to embrace this DevOps then, where it's more and where it includes developers and everyone else on the team? How do you get your culture or your team really buy into this whole shift left type approach?
Yeah, so it's not an easy job because it's needs the mindset change as well. Yeah. And when we are talking about the mindset change, not only mindset change, but there is a skill gap as well. When you are talking about the Shiftleft and with the agile team, everyone is a team member. We don't have these silos like QA or dev. Everyone should start working on it. So there are different challenges as well when you start bringing these concepts inside the team. So we also faced these similar challenges when we started with this Shiftleft approach in our team. Basically, challenge number one is the mindset, where initially, even though we have a DevOps and Agile, the team as a small sprint is working as a small, we can say as a not fully sprint team, but as a mini Agile model is followed, like a SDLC model, where development is done. After that, tester is picking up that story for the testing and then going. So as Vishnu mentioned initially, we asked team to start from the requirement page itself. So everyone is onboarded. Now, second challenge where we are having to break the mindset. So for that breaking the mindset, we need to onboard the QA skills on each and every person. So we started with the knowledge sessions where how QA's mindset can be developed and how we can have the QA mindset, and developers, instead of developing the code, how they can think from breaking the code itself. So that is the area where we work. Apart from that, we work on the technical side where Vishnu can give the more idea about it, how we can involve testers or the developer in a testing using the programming itself.
So the functional part was, train the developers on the changing of their mindsets and everyone on the team to have a QA mindset so that they can break their code. So this was the functional parts. From the technical part, what we incorporated is that we used a certain kind of framework, which, was more focusing rather than writing the code to break the, but to write good test codes actually. So we were using, earlier we had some, this project is elaborated. So we have big data, ETL, backend, UI, everything is in place actually. And it's a huge background of the project. So a very big team is working and there are a lot of QAs also involved in this. So we needed a framework which, we can design, and the testers who are testing, when I'm saying the testers, it's an a unique term. Anyone can test it actually, the dev team or the test team. So their main focus should be on writing the test cases actually, rather than, depending on any framework itself or writing any code on the framework side. They should be only writing the test case so that we have a higher productivity on the feedback loop. So for this, what we did is that we used Karate framework, the DSL, where we are, writing only the keywords so that we can write the test codes. So we have this same framework being used for UI, API, backend, ETL, as well as for big data. automation as well. And since we only have to take care of the keywords, and if we place it correctly, the test code itself gets developed. So in that fashion, what we did is that we used the framework to have a faster automation script generated for this. So in this way, we were able to attain, writing the test case on the pre-development side itself. So as soon as the story is in place and developers are working on the development side, and the tester who were maybe testing on that, they can write the test cases parallelly on that. So rather than they are focusing on the framework and how the execution will happen, they are now focusing on writing on the test scripts only.
To add on it, that the framework is such a way that no one has to learn for it, and there is a very less learning curve. So that is another process change we applied, that if anyone wants to onboard on it, he or she don't have to give a more learning curve. He can start immediately.
No, it's a good point. Especially when you're dealing with developers, you're like, oh, the developers, they should be able to pick up Selenium or something and code it. And in my experience, that is not the case. So even using a keyword driven framework, a lot of people think, oh, it's just for business users, but it sounds like it's also a driver for developers and testers. So you're speaking the same language and not getting caught up in the technical geekery of testing almost.
Right. So the Karate DSL actually helped us here actually. So we are using the keywords and so that they can understand what exactly is happening with this. So whoever is reading, the test code is aware what exactly is happening with the testing. So everyone is involved, from the dev team, from the stakeholders, from the project managers. Everyone is involved in the testing side, and they are exactly knowing what that because we are following the acceptance criteria. So based on that acceptance criteria, we are writing the test case. So everyone knows what exactly is being developed and what exactly is being tested.
All right. So like I said, you work for a huge bank, big organization. How big is this group? Do you have to have like an architect on top? Do you actually lead the effort with each of the teams? Do you have to know who has training, what they need to know? Like, how does it work? Is it part of you have a new hire and the new hire goes through, how does it work? How do you get everyone involved, and how big's the team, and how do you make sure everyone's on board and using all the right processes that you have in place?
Yeah. So yes, ours is a big team. We have around 100 plus team members involved for our project, where we work for the surveillance. And when we are talking about surveillance, it's a huge feeds data we are getting, which needs to be processed and alert. And after getting alert, report it to the business for the further actions on it. So we have an enterprise system as well. And as you mentioned, yes, we have around 6 sprint team working on for each different features. On top of it, we have architecture layer. On top of it, we have the business layer. On top of it, we have the management layer as well. And when I'm saying about this business layer or the architect level, it's across globe, because surveillance, for being a big bank presence across the world, we have the branch data connecting from across the world. So data is also huge. So when we are talking about data, it's unstructured data where it is coming from the bank, whether in a different type of languages as well. Because when we are talking the surveillance for the data which is going, so it's all type of data, audio, video records, as well as email or chat or social networks data, and even for the regulatory system. So all type of data coming. So if you can see, for us, backend means ETL jobs, as well as database, as well as the Hadoop, where everything is been processed and structured, and then it comes to the UI. So if you consider our presence of the project guideline, 70 to 80% towards the backend, and just 20 to 30% on the UI side. And we need the framework where everything is there. And that's where the Vishnu had clearly mentioned that when we are talking about QA skill set, one person can't be everywhere. That the backend testing as well as ETL as well, and same with the development team as well. So we need to onboard it as well on the every side. And that's where, yes, as you mentioned, for the training perspective, yes, whenever there is a new onboarding person come, we have to give the idea about everything.
So to add on that, we are taking regular sessions on that. Actually, monthly we have one session throughout the entire team actually. So whoever is new joining, we make sure that they are joining, and we also have a feedback loop. So earlier we actually make some who have worked previously on the Shiftleft, we invite them, and we generally provide a feedback how their experience with the Shiftleft approach was, so that it builds a confidence on the new onboarding members how well it is right now working and how well they can contribute to that.
I guess I don't know why I'm fascinated by this, but once again, I'm going back to our banking company. So a lot of times when people think agile and shift left and like all the latest and greatest, it seems like they have to be more like Google or something, where you have like maybe newer technology. But I used to work for an insurance company. I used to work for a healthcare company, and they have older technology. And people usually say, "Oh, we can't do CI/CD, we can't do DevOps because we have all this legacy software, or we have all this regulation." So working for a banking company you probably have all regulations as well. You have to work around. ETL is not simple. You're not doing simple browser-based front-end type automation. So how did you have any challenge to overcome in that aspect where people are saying like, well, wait a minute, we can't move this fast, or we can't shift left because we have to follow these different processes because we're regulated or something, or we have to worry about being audited or anything like that?
Right. We had these challenges actually, since we are having audits as well, and we have certain limitations on adapting a new kind of framework or new type of any open source, because being on the regulatory side, we have to make sure whatever we are using are stable on the stability versions, and they are secured actually. So yes, we had this initial challenges. So how did we overcome is that we actually have a very good DevOps team and the architect team actually, and we ourselves has go back through the different back to where we have started earlier. We actually go back to what all challenges we have, and what all are the solutions that we are available in the bank already. And using that, we accommodate few changes we did ourselves. DevOps teams helped us in setting up the CI/CD pipelines, and still they are providing the support on whatever fronts they need. So either it is any Unix side or any it's a database side. So definitely the DevOps teams and the architect team are providing the better feedback and help to us, so that we are able to achieve this.
So you both mentioned feedback multiple times. When people talk shift left, a lot of times they don't realize that when you shift left, you're getting information from production after you release, and then building that back into the system from the beginning. So how do you measure then how you're doing? Like, do you have any metrics or KPIs you use to realize, okay, we did this release, went successful, it didn't go so well, let's learn from it and then build it in now when we start from requirements again with our next sprint or next feature?
Initially, what you mentioned, yes, we used to do that. But now we have the controlled environments available for us for validation. And when you talk about the control environment, we get prod-like structure on the control environment. It's a prod-like replica where we do the feedback loop and where we get the production grade data, production grade manufactured data, where we can accommodate a large volume as well, and we can do the performance and continuous feedback. So from the regulatory perspective or the what you are talking about, yes, there are still restrictions, but with the controlled environment, we can have the feedback loops available.
All right. So how do you create then a realistic control environment? Because once again, when I was in healthcare, it's like, we ship to these different hospitals, their environment's completely different, or it's just too expensive. What are you using to build those environments to make sure that they're accurate?
So it's a replica of production. And it will be like a production environment only with restricted access. So when we are talking about these, all these big Google or Amazon, they have their replica where everyone can access, including dev team, and they can use it. But in our case, it's a control environment where limited users are there, have the access from the architect and the small team who can execute and replicate it. So till integration environment, everyone can do and replicate. It is again the similar structure like it. From the budget perspective, yes, we get the budget where we can replicate it and have the production like environment. But it will be with the restricted access and with the limitations, but it is like a prod. So fraud replica, you can say.
To add on that, we have a particular team for that actually, who are doing unmasking all that stuff so that the production like data can be replicated. So we are not entirely keeping all the production data. It is just a small portion of the production like data which we can mimic for our environment, and for which we can run our automation test cases on that actually, and can provide the better feedback.
Because that was my follow-up, like the data, especially in banking, how do you get realistic data that is like production, but you can't use it, real customer data, obviously, because you're going to be regulated and you're a bank. So how, like masking, but like, is there any more that you can give, like how that is done?
So it's we have the separate teams, CDO teams available to us. It's the central data organization, which provides us the data on all the environments with the manufacturing whenever it is required for the lower environment, and with masking when it comes to the controlled environment.
Very cool. So, you talked about karate. Is there any other tools or things that help to enable you to shift left with DevOps that you find helpful?
Karate is the main tool that we are using for the automation, but for performance testing, right, we have a huge data, and we have to do some of the infrastructure testing, and as well as some of the performance testing on the API sites for which the UI is taking care of. So for performance testing, we are definitely relying on the JMeter, where we are writing the custom jobs for that actually, for the infrastructure validation. So infrastructure validation is not a regular basis we are doing. It is based on the infrastructure changes, if any we have, or any upgradation we are doing on the infrastructure. Then we are running the performance script on the infrastructure side. For the UI and API side, we have load runner. We are using the load runner to run, to execute and mimic our user experience. And for at the sprint level also, we are trying to execute our performance scripts using the Karate itself, actually. So we are writing the scripts in the Scala format, and Gatling, the inbuilt mechanism of the Karate, is helping us to test the performance script within the sprint timeframe.
So who handles the performance and resilience testing then? Is that just testers, or do you also expect your developers to contribute, or is it just the whole team? It's just part of a feature. Okay, in the sprint, these are the definitions are done. Doesn't matter who does it, but it needs to get done.
Right. So we are actually doing the initial phase when we were starting, right? Before that Shiftleft, the testers were only that part of the team. But now, right now, since we are moving with Shiftleft, so anyone who has done the scripting, because once the feature has been designed by the Karate, you can just call that feature in the Scala like language, and then you can just run the performance step. So anyone who is working on that feature, whether it is a dev member or any QA member, they can execute the test cases for the performance.
All right. So if someone's listening to this, like, this sounds great, I work for a banking organization, I want to do this as well. Any caution you would give them, or any like advice on how maybe to make it maybe a smoother transition than maybe some things that you may have had to have dealt with, or you dealt with when you were first starting to roll this out yourself?
Yeah. So couple of things I would like to give the benefits. One thing, whenever you are starting from scratch, don't work as a silos where the developer will do a development and QA. Build a T-shaped team where at least some knowledge about the testing or about the architecture developer also have. And when it comes to the tester, it should have a development background as well, or he or she should also be able to contribute on the dev side as well whenever required, or at least from the analysis side as well. So T-shaped team is the must to have when it goes with the Shiftleft. That will be the key. And second thing, go for a framework, automation feedback loop, which can be get utilized from functional testing till performance test without any maximize change. So whatever is required for the changes from moving from functional testing to integration testing, it should be just plug and play from the functional test script. So that will be give a good advantage for the Shiftleft. And third and the last thing, don't focus on only build automation. Whenever I talk about continuous testing is also must to have the Shiftleft, and that feedback loop from the continuous testing is must to have. So from scratch, when they are developing, then these 3 points should be looked into it.
Right. So my giveaway would be, right, the performance should also be included in the testing, mainly from the infrastructure side, because infrastructure is a costly environment and we are investing so much. And once we have everything on that, and at the last we decide that this infrastructure is not supporting the data what we were supposed to have. So infrastructure testing should also be a key portion when we are having an infrastructure being designed, and it should be tested as well.
Cool. So how do you improve the system? Say you had a new tool or technique, like AI is a big rage. Do you research different technology, like, and say, okay, let's try to incorporate this now and see how it can help us? Like, how do you continually improve their process to make sure it's continually getting better as well?
Right. So we are analyzing on the market, what we have in the markets, and we are trying to implement the current trend with the current trend. So AI is a big play right now that we have, and it definitely has something to provide on the testing as well. So as a team also, we analyze what can be improved on the AI side. And as an individual contributor, we definitely go back to the market and we try to have a continued conversation with other team members who are working in different organizations and how they are working with the AI tools, if they are using anything, and we try to get a feedback from them how well it is, so that if we come back to our organization and we see there is a chance that we can implement these changes, we can incorporate them.
All right. So one other thing I'm dying to know is obviously you need money to do these types of initiatives. How do you convince your C-suite, your CEO, like your executives, like, hey, yeah, we're going to do this and this is why it makes sense? Is it coming from them to tell you, hey, we need a better DevOps process? Or is it coming from you all saying, hey, this is what we're going to do, and then you have to get buy-in from your team, your executives to do it?
I would say it's both way. We have in a bank hackathons going on, even on the innovations going on every year, and the competitions going on where innovations we can put forth our ideas, and the best idea gets selected and get budget as well to implement it. So, cool. And even in a hackathon, we gather the ideas and best ideas we circulate across the team to develop it, and whatever is being developed can be utilized and worked on it, and as well as it can be a product as well for a bank.
Oh, very cool.
So yes, we have these things in place.
Nice. All right. Before we go, is there one piece of actionable advice you can give to someone to help them with their DevOps efforts? And then what's the best way to find or contact either one of you?
So I would say, if you want to go with the DevOps with the one good advice, start with the V model, where you can have TDD and PDD approach combinedly work, where TDD can go with the unit testing and the PDD can go hand in hand with the TDD for acceptance test. So have a framework with that so that you can achieve Shiftleft better.
So from my advice would be, rather than focusing on the manual testing, the effort mostly should be have on the automation side as well. Because automation, even though the ROI on the automation side for the initial phase is less, but as soon as we grow, as soon as our project grows, the ROI seems to be have on a higher side on the automation side. So it's better to have the automation working parallelly. Manual, in some cases, it's beneficial, but it's always to have an automation scripts to have the pure benefit you can get.
And for links of everything of value we covered in this DevOps Toolchain show, head on over to testguild.com/P126. Remember, latency is the silent killer of your app. Don't rely on frustrated user feedback. You can know exactly what's happening and how to fix it with Bugsnag from SmartBear. See it for yourself. Go to bugsnag.com and click the free trial button. No credit card required. So that's it for this episode of the DevOps Toolchain show. I'm Joe. My mission is to help you succeed in creating end-to-end full-stack DevOps Toolchain awesomeness. As always, test everything and keep the good. Cheers. Hey, thanks again for listening. If you're not already part of our awesome community of 27,000 of the smartest testers, DevOps, and automation professionals in the world, we'd love to have you join the fam at testguild.com. And if you're in the DevOps automation software testing space, or you're a test tool provider and want to offer real-world value that can improve the skills or solve a problem for the Guild community, I'd love to hear from you. Head on over to testguild.info and let's make it happen.